What's up, everybody? It's Chris Kay, Andrew Katz here, burning the red shirt back. Special edition. Of course, I'm talking about the Bru McCoy one more season, one last ride announcement. We had to do a special pod for this one specifically. Did you know he had an extra year? I guess is the first question here, Andrew.
Yeah, get right into the meat of the emergency pod. I did. I thought, I guess maybe we didn't talk about it, but I heard like over the past week, like Nico was trying to talk him into coming back or whatever. So I guess that they bonded in some regard.
Like father-son type way, in a sense.
What was that?
I said like in a father-son type way.
Am I correct that Nico's a dad too? I guess maybe we shouldn't
No, I meant it more like Bru is like what, 26 and Nico's like 18.
Right. Of course you did, but I thought I saw some tweets out there that
he might be. I mean,
Nico and
you know, you never know.
Everyone makes their own choices.
I had heard rumblings that he was like considering coming back. I think we had shared tweets together about it, in G chat. I mean, to be fair, what's he going to do in the NFL? Like, he probably makes as much, if not more money by doing this. Cause what's another year delay into the NFL? So, I mean, this is pretty nice. I'm not going to lie. Is Ramel Keaton coming back? Cause I hate that guy. He just gets in my way with all the fun that
I'm a huge fan. The season didn't work out great. It didn't really work out I was hoping for, but he had some spike weeks. I mean, they didn't really pay off for me in any way, shape, or form, but I was rooting for him. I did catch an article yesterday that one of the beat writers, Adam Sparks, put out about just reeling off the top 7 receivers, and he did not list Ramel Keaton, so I guess he's out of eligibility.
He's got to be.
Top 7 looks nice for Nico. You got Bru, you got Squirrel, you got 5-star freshman Mike Matthews coming in. That guy Chaz Nimrod that just runs sprints all day and doesn't catch passes. The Tulane kid. And then I guess there's a couple more that are slipping my mind.
I mean, Dante Thornton's got to be better.
Oh, yeah.
But isn't Brazel kind of Dante Thornton? Like, aren't they kind of
right? Yeah.
They're both tall, lanky, right?
Yeah.
I will never understand what happened with Dante Thornton, especially if he has a big year this year or next year. Like, how did he not just do it this year?
I don't know. I guess he was banged up for a lot of the year too. It's always tough though when you're transferring your first year into the program and there's guys that have some level of talent that have been there that you're competing with to ascend over them straight away in a way that's going to pay off in year one. I don't know. Feels difficult.
What did I was pretty impressed with Nico against Iowa. Like,
so I was gonna say I didn't get a chance to watch that game. That is definitely one that I want to try and find cut-ups on. I don't know if you saw that Matthew Love's Ball rip in piece is got demoed off his YouTube channel's Toast, but I'm sure there's other people that'll throw some cut-ups. But I want to see that game. I didn't watch any of it. What was it like?
He, from a passing perspective, it was not all that impressive, but like I liked the rushing. They had designed runs around the goal line. Like they very much wanted him to run the football, which is interesting considering how skinny he is. But I thought he was pretty good in the pocket, like all things considered, like he scrambled well. He evaded the pass rush well. And from a fantasy perspective, he doesn't have to throw a whole lot if he's going to be pretty decent running. And you also have to think too, like you're avoiding the negative rush plays is so big because all it takes is a 10-yard loss, and now it can add up.
How would you compare and contrast his fantasy game to Jackson Arnold's?
I would rather have Arnold, I think, just right off the bat, just because I think he's a better passer with equal run rushing ability. I was a little surprised with Arnold's rushing ability. He looked pretty fast. What I was impressed with the Arizona game was it seemed like two things. Did everybody seem like they were super fast in that game? I don't know what it was. Like everybody looked fast. And then the other thing was Fafita and Arnold. Like they had some quick releases and the arm strength was incredible. I was very impressed with how both of those guys threw the football.
Yeah. Fafita, It's definitely like we're all gonna have to pay up to get any piece of the Arizona offense next year, right? I guess Cowing's out of eligibility. I think I'm pretty positive about that. But you figure T-Mac is round one. Fafita, I haven't looked at his ground stats. Like I don't recall if he does anything on the ground. But you figure he'll go pretty high, top 5 rounds. Did you see they offered our dog Silas Bolden?
That would be a nice fit.
Yeah, that feels really nice. If you went there, I would expect Silas to go high, and that's like that. Yeah, I would love to see that because they have like a glaring hole now at second receiver. The Colorado kid never did it for me, and none of like the younger kids seemed like they ever really got there in terms of doing anything meaningful.
Yeah, so Fafita is negative rushing. negative 33 yards on 38 carries. He just will go for 0 or negative 35. Like that's pretty much essentially it. Tet 100% is a first rounder in my opinion. If we get like a Silas Bolden, I think as long as we don't hear anything insane like going into deeper into the spring, like why wouldn't he be like a 3rd or 4th rounder? Like, and that's not like to say that he should be like based on what he's done in the past, but like you put him together with he's essentially Cowing. But Fafita, I don't know if he's not going to run it. He's not going to be like a top 5 rounder for me. He probably is right outside the edge of.
You just had to tweet about how you hate those guys, right?
Well, yeah, a little bit. I have a type. He just needs to be around where Curtis Rourke is to me, right? Like you're hoping for 3,500 and 35 touchdowns. Like that's the only way to get to super relevance like that.
That makes sense. Yeah, like Dylan Gabriel was going in like the 10th round this past year, so oops.
I mean, well, Dylan. I mean, Jaden Daniels was the biggest oops of them all. I was taking him like the 7th, 8th, 9th round the entire time. I mean, this is actually great timing for a pod because Malik Hornsby hit the portal.
Dude, I as soon as it happened, I tweeted, I was like something like let's go do it again or whatever, and Froton comes in with fangs and telling me how we understandably is like, yeah, he calls those guys solo threats. He's like, yeah, it's not for me. Like a coach won't want to play that game with a guy who can't throw the ball. So, which makes sense. It really needs to be like a good fit for us like fantasy people, fantasy community, right, to want to buy back in. Like if he just goes into like if he were transferring to Nebraska and is like battling 3 other people, that probably can't do too much with that. But the 2 that I would love to see are Jacksonville State, right? Let's get him in that Rich Rod offense. Sorry, Logan Smothers, you're my boy, but I could not say no to seeing Malik Hornsby in that offense. And then also, if there's now that opening at Liberty, right? With Salter hitting the portal as well. You would think that Chadwell would probably want a little more from an arm perspective, but the guy has coached in extremely efficient seasons from McCall and Salter. And while I love Salter's arm talent, we saw what McCall looked like without Chadwell and with him. So you would think that he could mold Hornsby into a passable passer. And I mean, can you imagine him running or Hornsby, what he could do with his legs in that in the Chadwell offense? So those are the 2 I would love to see for my boy Malik.
Yeah, especially with like Salter in the portal now. It's like you just do a little game of musical chairs on replacing quarterbacks. I do know that the C2C Slack was hoping for Jacksonville State as well. So I think that would be the clear fantasy favorite. Speaking of Salter, I mean, is he already in the Plains? Is he on the Plains right now? Is he in Auburn?
Dude, I do not buy that one, but like how much information do we actually have? But as someone who was emotionally and financially invested from Salter coming out of week 1 in 2022 after he came in against Southern Miss and dropped bombs on them and led Liberty to an overtime win against Southern Miss in week 1 of 2022. Like, I was bought in from there, and I saw the way that Freeze kind of yanked him around, like talked about all the things that he like the reasons he wasn't ready to commit to him. And yeah, sure, motivation, like you want to motivate a young kid to like do the right things, I guess, and like mature and get more composure and stuff like that. But I don't know, you want to play him over for Jonathan Bennett. And he did get hurt, Salter, and struggle with injuries and stuff. But like, I don't know, I wouldn't want to go back to someone who like kind of yanked me around that way. Like, I think, I don't know, I wouldn't say that the vibes I got coming out of 2022 was like that these two really enjoyed the working relationship that they had.
Well, see, I think the thing here is that you're forgetting that Hugh Freeze is a man of adaptation and learning and, recovering from past mistakes. So
Right.
if anything, this is about as good as a fit as it gets. So, I mean, I think you're pretty spot on. I just don't know, like, where would he go? I guess, like Liberty is about as funded as it gets. So you're going to a Power 5 if you're not staying at Liberty, you're going to a Power 5, right? So what Power 5 needs a quarterback?
You saw that rumor I shared that Dylan Gabriel's highest NIL offer came from Liberty. That shit's so funny. You would think that this is not purely NIL driven, right? For the reason you just said, that Liberty has no problems there. They can figure out the coin situation and pay what it takes to keep Salter if that's what was driving him. But potentially playing the equivalent of 8 to 9 practice scrimmages over the season wasn't that appealing to him. Like, I watched pretty much every Liberty game after getting financially invested really early on and them going undefeated. Like, I lived and died with that team. There wasn't much. My heart's okay after that. There weren't that many scares. Fortunately, I didn't catch the Sam Houston State game where Sam Houston State was like at their 6-yard line and had multiple chances to win in the final 30 seconds. But outside of that, like, there were no really close calls. The final month until the conference championship game, they didn't have to go off page 1 in the playbook. They just like the final game, week 13, I think Salter threw 11 passes, completed 3. They ran for 400 yards. Like, I don't know, maybe he's thinking a little more long term. If there's one thing we know about Kay and Salter, it's that he's got a good head on his shoulders. He thinks about all things very clearly. Always got that projectized outlook on life. But yeah, maybe he's just thinking about it through the lens of like, hey, I don't want to just play 9 scrimmages. I want to actually go out and make a different use of my collegiate career. Militant Ohio State Twitter is banging the table for him over Will Howard. Dude, I would love to see that. I think that would be so much fun.
No, thank you. As a Michigan fan, no, thank you. I don't want any piece of that. That could either blow up in their face or become like the greatest thing since sliced bread.
It would be interesting.
Speaking of Will Howard, it's so interesting because I feel like things are happening like in these bowl games that we thought were not a big deal, that meant nothing, that are now potentially putting things in people's heads. So like, to start, right, like Hugh Freeze felt very committed to Peyton Thorne, but then he looked bad against who was that? Maryland. They looked awful. So that changes things, I think, a little bit. Now with Salter in the portal, I think, maybe he's going to backtrack that statement. And then with USC, it's like, well, Howard was supposed to be there, and then Miller Moss looked incredible with some backups, or, not the main crew, right? Some of the guys that he would be throwing to next year. So do you think the Will Howard stuff is based on USC, or was that really not as committed as we thought it was weeks ago?
Oh man, who knows? I had no I had no reason to really base my skepticism of Miller Moss, your boy, but like I've just figured he would be cast aside, just play backup role his entire career. It seemed like he was like gung ho, like yeah, I just want to be at USC. I'm cool living my dream as a backup quarterback, but good for him for balling out. It'd be sweet to I think see him run with that. The what you hear about Will Howard now, right? Is he like the considerations Ohio State, USC, Miami, or the NFL? I can't believe Cam Ward's going to the NFL. Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, you're enjoy being on the practice squad or whatever after being a 4th or 5th round pick. Like that's I don't know. I would go, dude. If you're getting wined and dined in Miami, I'd take a couple million and just go fucking party and have a fun year and like win 8 games there. I think that would be a good time and a little better than just chilling on a practice squad for a year.
Yeah, he got bad info there because a lot of times, right, with this NIL, it makes a lot of sense, especially with him. He could make 1 to 2 to 3 million maybe at a real school. It could party if he wanted to, or he could just try to improve, which he needs to become an NFL quarterback. So like, I don't, it used to be, well, like I need to get better and I'm not going to get better at Washington State and I'm not going to get paid. So I might as well just go get paid and get better. And that makes sense in the NFL, but like, he's not a top 3 to 4 round quarterback.
No, he just played in like 2 incredibly quarterback friendly systems. And even those systems cannot really hide his flaws. Like you watch the most of the games that were actual like back and forth type games against legit competitions. Like, all right, this dude just it's not it. He's not it right now. Like, yeah, you can scheme him up or whatever, and he puts up some nice passing totals, but I don't know. It's like pretty obvious that's just there's better QBs out there.
Yeah. This is a big week for portal stuff, especially at quarterback, because KJ Jefferson went to UCF. That's got to be, I think, 2 things, right? That's I think, a great fit.
Yeah.
And RIP to Timmy McClain, right? I mean, see you later.
Yeah, we do love Timmy. Josh Chevalier, longtime favorite. But he's not beating out KJ. And that, like, good on Gus. At least, like, unlike so many other teams, it feels like teams and coaches, when Gus takes a transfer QB, it's a QB that totally fits the system, right? With Plumlee, Timmy, KJ, like we know what's getting. Like KJ presumably knows what he's getting into. He's running it 250 times this year,
but he's got the body to do it. He's a big guy, but he can run.
Yeah.
So I like this. This fit feels really good to me.
Definitely.
And it,
who are you drafting, Fafito or KJ?
I would rather have at the same price.
Yeah. And then we could do it where you think that they'll go in drafts too.
I think I would rather KJ. I have a type, but I just can't get away from the type. It is very close though. I feel like Fafita is super safe. I mean, but I don't see him as a potential. I was playing around looking at like the top 20 quarterbacks of the year, and you pretty much, I think maybe 3 of the top 20 had like 250 rushing yards or less. And like one of them was Bo Nix, who was around that number, but he had like 6 touchdowns rushing, and what he did throwing, right? So I think Fafita is super safe. Worst case, you overdrafted him probably in the 5th round, but he probably should have gone in the 10th round. KJ, you take him in 6th, 7th, 8th round, and he could easily be a top 2 guy. I don't know. Who would you take?
I do usually default to whoever plays in the later games. So Fafita in that one. But I also just I love just seeing a dream bet happen like KJ in Gus's system. So that would be tough for me to say no to. I probably would go with KJ.
It'll be a really interesting quarterback year because you have so much. You have so many different moving pieces, and then you also have returning guys like we've talked about in the past with like Castellanos, like Haynes King. He looked promising and runs a good bit, and that team just looks better. So there's gonna be a lot of guys. I mean, you look at this top 20, and there's names that you would have never guessed would be in the top 20. We don't even know where Diego Pavea is going, right?
It's true.
Hopefully somewhere good. I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but hopefully something good. But all right, what do you think about obviously the game on Monday? I mean, obviously you're rooting for Washington because you have money on it in multiple ways, and you're wearing a Washington shirt right now for those that are unable to watch. But what do you think about this game?
I think that there's a chance that Washington just bamboozles Michigan. They can't stop. Michigan can't stop the passing game. There's always a receiver who is somewhat open, right? And Penix just hits him, and they just can't pick up chunk play after chunk play after chunk play. The interesting part is, right, or if you treat that as a constant, like the interesting part then becomes like, well, Washington's probably not stopping Michigan's run game. Like, what have you seen in recent? Like what from the Texas game made it seem like they could stop a solid running game whatsoever. I don't know. Like, I won't pretend that like I have any idea how to like meaningfully form an opinion on how the game is going to actually play out. It seems like it should be a really fun game. I was as someone that jammed money on Tybo Rogers under on FanDuel when it was up for a little bit yesterday. I was so excited to see then that Dylan Johnson is expected to play. But like now reading the full quote and thinking about it more, like at best, I think he's a coin flip to play. What do you think?
This feels like I don't know if there's names off the top of my head I can remember, but it feels like the situations where it's like, of course it's like Blake Corum maybe in the playoffs a couple of years ago where it was like, yeah, we're going to have him ready to go. And then he runs like 2 times, like that feels very likely here. It is probably the biggest question mark, obviously, on Washington. It's like, because we know what we're getting out of Washington, right? It's just like 3 stud receivers, a tight end that could pop, and Penix is just going to chuck it. And I was actually surprised a little bit with this rushing the other day. But Dylan Johnson is like such a heavy piece of that rushing attack that, like, what do you do with all those carries? Do you just throw it more? Do you give it to Tybo? I mean, Richard Newton was getting some snaps. Like what? How does this happen? I thought it was Richard Newton that was getting some snaps. I'd have to.
So Nixon got a few snaps.
Maybe I'm thinking of Nixon, not Newton.
Yeah,
but
Newton's been. I saw something that Newton's like been basically just special teams because his knees all messed up.
It was Nixon, not Newton. Yeah. They're
I
all
think
the same to me.
It's like, here's what's running through my head in terms of trying to figure out Dylan Johnson stuff. You've got from this year the bullshit with Jalen McMillan and Washington, right? Where they're like, oh yeah, he's gonna play, he's good to go for like 3 straight weeks, and we light money on fire in DFS because of what the expectation that he's gonna play, and then he doesn't, right? So that just shows us that this is what a coaching staff, like so many, that you can't take their word for anything. It means absolutely nothing. Johnson after the game, right? There's some quote that he said like, yeah, there's no way I'm missing that game or whatever. But what does that really mean? Of course he's going to say that. But at the same time, there's like Washington, you can give them credit for like so many things this year because I think they've done so many things so smartly. But I think that one thing is like they've been so adept at playing the long game in terms of scaling back Penix's usage throughout the season when he got banged up, resting McMillan, trying to get him healthy. And like a lot of their decisions with respect to personnel and game plan, I think, have been with an eye toward the playoff and toward trying to take down a natty, knowing that what it's going to take to ultimately do that. And if you just push too much of your chips forward in the early part of the season, take unneeded risks, like that could bite you, right? Like what if McMillan is out for the year because you pushed him, or Penix, you put it like when he was hurt for like 4 to 6 games, you put too much on his shoulders and he just re-injures like his ribs or whatever. Like, but they don't have, like, this is the national championship, so they don't have the ability to do that anymore. So if it's on the cusp of can Dylan go, can he not go? He's so much better than all the other running backs. It's not even close. Like, maybe now he actually goes. You can't play that game anymore where you're just thinking downstream. So that is in my mind as well when I'm trying to figure out, like, is this guy going to play? Is he not going to play? Like, they can't do, there's that option is off the table to just kick the can down the road a little bit.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to look at it. Ultimately, it's a matter of like, I think he's going to attempt to go.
I do too. Yeah.
You know, like we saw it against Texas. Like, he was banged up and then I thought he was done. Like, he looked like he was done at one point and then he came back in. And so I think that's exactly what we're going to get. And it's just a matter of how much, painkillers they can pump in him before he has to give it up. But like, he's going to be there the first drive, in my opinion. And then it's just a matter of like, can he do it? I can't imagine with a week's 8 days, 9 days, whatever, that he could be full go. I just can't see it. I mean, it's a foot injury, right? Like,
well, the context. So let's talk about it more. Let's spend the rest of the pod just talking about this because it matters to me. He hurts himself in like week 11 against Oregon State or whatever, hurts his foot. And it's like on, off through the remainder of the season. And then in the playoff game the other day, re-aggravates or whatever. I didn't stay up till the last of the game. The end of the game. I'm so washed at this point. But like, okay, he can't make it off the field, gets carted off or whatever. And then last night, the like Ryan Grubb quote on that like local radio show is basically like, he had x-rays at the Superdome. We expect him to play. The full quote also says like, we're sending him for more tests, aka MRI. And that got like underreported. I'm not gonna play doctor and pretend I know, like, I don't know what the difference between x-ray and MRI is, but and like how that relates to like a foot injury or shit like that. But like, I would just take it as like, he's not fully out of the woods, right? And all the other variables that we just talked to, like coaches lying and shit like that. And like, okay, like he clearly is not healthy. All that stuff, roll it up, package it, and now we have to give consideration to it. Do you do well on the natty slate? Usually you're playing DFS, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna play. I never really do well. We've talked about it pregame with like the Trey Sermon stuff. Really job to be there, but I basically like have lost half my entry in the last couple of years. But to your previous point, X-ray is gonna be like, I think that's more bone related. MRI is more like ligament related. Like, you wouldn't, if you're gonna check out if he tore his ACL, for example, they would do an MRI, not an X-ray. But I will say, Nate, I know you're running and listening right now. So if you think that we're both idiots and need to correct us, please Slack/tweet us and confirm what the hell we're talking about. But to me, that like the fact that he is getting something else checked to me is like, there's still pain. Like, there's still something going on that they want to confirm or rule out. I don't know. It's especially since it's kind of that lingering injury. I just don't see how he could run it 15 times. Like, I don't know. I think there's a couple big question marks on how, like, if you're going to play DFS this weekend or bet props even on the game, which are super tight because Washington and Michigan are two of the more predictable teams this season. The question here would be on the Michigan side would be, do they do the whole 2 tight end thing like they did for the last half of the season where they just run it, or do they use more 2 receiver or 3 and 4 receiver sets with I should say 3 receiver sets with Samaj Morgan and Tyler Morris? That was a big surprise for me in the Alabama game. Mike and I both were like, they're just going to run it and ground and pound. Part of me is like, well, they used the extra month, right? That month of practice to put in some wrinkles that Alabama wouldn't be expecting. And we can still run the ball well because we like our offensive line. And obviously it worked enough. But I think they go back to the running game. We saw, like you said, what Texas did to them. Blake Corum, I think, is going to get a ton of usage. But I think, to me, it's a 2 tight end game. Do you have a vibe on that?
from a DFS perspective, like Quorum's going to be 95% owned, right? JJ will be. I have no idea what JJ's ownership would be, but I mean the default, and it's going to get regurgitated over and over is that Michigan's just going to run the shit out of the ball, right? So if you're trying to take this slate down, maybe flipping that and either jamming some Michigan passing game like that will, like if you're trying to get unique, that could be it. But I mean, common sense, right, is that Michigan's going to just try and run it 50 times plus and just keep like force Washington to stop them. Donovan Edwards got listed for prop on FanDuel today. Do you want to guess?
Rushing yards?
Yeah.
Probably like 27 and a half.
25 and a half. Why does he suck?
He's got the worst vision I've ever seen in my life.
Is that what it is? Like it's crazy that like that is all that matters for a running back.
I think he's a little bit more downhill than shifty, like than I thought. You know, like I think just because he's good in the passing game, like he can catch a pass and he can move around a little, that people think that he is really good in like the run game, like side to side. But if you look at like his big runs last year, they're big, huge plays, right? It's like the Ohio State game was basically where Ohio State just tried to stop the run and put everybody on the line, and Michigan's offensive line created a hole and he just hit it. But like there's so many plays where he has like 6 yards of open space and he goes to the 1 yard of open space, you know, like, and I think they're almost like fed up with it. What was interesting was how Michigan used Mullings, the third running back, the former linebacker, in the game. And it was interesting to me because it wasn't like he was pass blocking. Like he went out and caught a big pass at one point in the game. Like he had a carry or two. Like, and it was pretty decent amount of snaps compared to Edwards. So I don't have any confidence in Edwards in terms of like DFS perspective. But I don't think that like, oh, by going back to this 2 tight end heavy run thing, that it would still be Edwards. Like something happened, or they liked something about Mullings where they wanted to go that route, because you would think Edwards would be the guy in the passing attack, not Mullings, but it was the other way around.
Is Edwards transferring after this year?
I bet you he goes pro, but he shouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, any running back, I would just say, yeah, you would. I wonder what his market would be. I guess that's a good question for you. What would his market be? But then also, like, what does Michigan do with no returning running backs? Because a couple guys are already in the portal. Not that they were all that relevant, but a couple guys are in the portal.
Michigan is not at all one of those teams that they're not like Clemson, right? They're not like, they are interested in using the portal to fill talent gaps, right? They hosted a bunch of receivers. Like they brought in kicker from the portal. They brought in like key defensive guys, offensive linemen. Like they'll use the portal to attack as needed, right? And you would think that, okay, Quorum's gone, Edwards transfers, maybe they go get a running back out of the portal. They've got some amazing freshmen coming in, right?
Maybe.
Yeah. You're part of C2C, dude. I thought that you study high school tape and shit.
No, I like Ben Hall, the freshman that's there now, but you can never really tell because all his rushing was like in the spring game and then also in the like in blowouts. So it's like, what am I getting here? But like if they do go to the portal for a running back, who's in the portal? Like, in when is that going to happen, in like May or April or whatever? Because the portal just closed, right? So like, who are they going to go get? And I'm hoping to lead you down a path where JJ returns and they decide to open the passing game up more. Bring in Jamal Banks, who they're having on for a visit, and we get.
Is JJ? Do you think JJ is good at being a quarterback?
I think he's a good quarterback. I don't know if he's like if he goes to the draft, he would not be a top 4 or 5 quarterback. He might be the quarterback 5. Like, just depends, right? I think Jaden Daniels has taken over the spot as the 3rd, and then if you like Penix, he would be 4. And then it just is a debate, in my opinion, of like who the fifth guy is. There's not really like, this feels very top heavy at the quarterback. I think he, for the longest time I was like, yeah, he's going pro. But now I don't know, man. I think he would come
If
back.
Harbaugh goes to the NFL, is JJ definitely gone?
I don't know, man. I would say that's really strange. I think there's two things that would really impact. It would be Harbaugh leaving, and then also Michigan winning the championship or losing, right? I think it's kind of would be like that Blake Corum thing where like if they lost, JJ would be more incentivized to come back. If Harbaugh leaves, then he would be more incentivized to come back. But I'm not buying that Harbaugh is going pro. Like he's just kind of a weird dude. Like I don't know if NFL teams want that, which is funny considering all he's really ever done is win.
Yeah.
But what do you think about his Jesus would have been a 5-star comment?
It's Harbaugh. It's peak Harbaugh.
It's peak Harbaugh. So I don't know. You got a prediction? You want to make a prediction on the game?
Go 30-24 Washington.
I will go. I think low scoring. I think Michigan will ground and pound, and then I think Washington. I think they're sneaky in terms of like slow pace, aren't they?
I don't know.
They were talking about it, I feel like during the game, but I was a little bit of mix of everything. The first and second quarter of the second game. I'll say like 27-20 Michigan with another botched extra point, probably. But all right, any final thoughts or comments? I thought we would keep this one short.
I'm already like out of activities to do intra week. Like there's only one game left. I default to pick up my phone, open up my gambling apps, and like, all right, do some analysis and stuff, see what the board looks like. There's nothing to do. I find myself thinking like, all right, well, what do I do now? I don't know what I'm gonna do for like the next 6 months or whatever. I might actually have to like try to do my job. I don't know.
Hang out with your family. You could do franchises book thing that he talks about.
I saw that. It looked cool. I've got he sent me a couple books actually. Because do you think you don't read? Do you?
Not really. No.
Have you noticed that like on gambling Twitter there is a collective of us
people
that
yeah
are into books?
It's like you're trying to wash away your sins with the fact that you do something.
I don't think it's for me. It's not that. I think for me it is when I've got downtime. There's all these different vices, right, that are around. Like I can go and start fucking hammering drinks and shit. And not to say that I don't read and drink, because like it's a fun activity. But if I get like into a book and I write that, it will kind of keep me away from other vices, whether it's like just diving into like a bunch of unhealthy food or like hammering drinks or shit. So I don't know. Maybe like gambling Twitter generally feels that same sentiment. But yeah, I've got a bunch of books that I'm trying to dive into this off season. I'm on the last book of reading. Do you know who Isaac Asimov is? Science fiction author. No. He wrote the Foundation books, I, Robot, so robot books, and then there's like a middle series 2 of Empire books. They're all connected. I'm on the 16th and last one of this reading order that I'm doing. I started in September 2022, so I've got that. It's bittersweet that I'm about done reading something that I've been invested in for like 16 months at this point, but then I've got a bunch of other stuff that I've been putting off and got lined up. So I'll definitely be doing a bunch of reading, but outside of that, still got some different things. Just I'll have some free time.
Yeah, well, you could do what I did and try to have a kid during this off season.
We're done. We're done. 2's good.
I will not have free time. But we'll be potting. We'll be potting. Hopefully get Zach back.
Yeah.
He went on that hiatus where he just was a soccer referee and took it way too seriously. But here we are. But awesome. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Enjoy the game on Monday, the last one before the real season begins, off season.
You're
excited for the off season?
Dude, yeah, I love the off season.
This is our peak season. So I didn't know if you had anything more to add to that, but awesome. Well, enjoy the week, enjoy the game, and we'll catch you guys next week probably.